Hey folks, how's it going? So, if this is our first time meeting, thank you for coming here. My name is Jay. On this channel, we do a lot of hi-fi component reviews, and music and audio is our biggest passion. So if you share the similar type of passion for music and audio, then please consider subscribing to the channel, become part of our community in the comment section, and also clicking that like button. Now, and if you do click that like button, it does help us out. So I appreciate it very much. Now, if this is not our first time meeting and you've seen me review hi-fi components, then thank you for coming back. Thank you for being a supporter. Thank you for being a subscriber. Now today, we are looking at something that I bought recently. So this is the Nord Acoustics NC500 monoblocks. They're based on the Hypex module design. They're Class D amplifiers. And what can I tell you? The reason I bought them? Well, I bought them because I've been reviewing a lot of Class A, Class AB designs, and that's what I primarily use in my own systems. So when I heard about this Hypex module, design that can compete and, be a giant killer towards, a lot of the components that I listen to, I wanted to see how it compares and how it fares, between a Class A or Class AB design. The big question is, can a Class D amplifier really sound like a Class A or a Class AB design while having a power output that is tremendous? So for example, this amplifier right here outputs 400 watts per channel into 8 ohms, 700 watts into 4 ohms, and 550 watts into 2 ohms. That is a fantastic amount of power. Now, that in theory should be able to drive anything on the market in terms of speakers. So my question is, how does it sound? I'm sure it can drive anything, but how does it sound? So I really wanted to experiment with the sound quality with more sensitive speakers like Tectons, for example, or even some of the less efficient speakers like Magnepans. Or even, Bacardi S400, for example, which likes to, have some power. So, before we get into that, let's take a look inside the amplifier first. So, this amplifier is unique because you can see that beside the power supply, you have this board. It's a buffer board, and you can add op-amps. So, you can switch out op-amps, much like in the Burson audio that I reviewed recently. And there's 2 different types that has been getting very good reviews from people that use it. And it's the Sonic Imagery, and the other one is called Sparkos. So thankfully I bought both of them and I tried both of them. Now I'll tell you right off the bat, and some people are just not gonna like this answer, is that the difference between those 2 op-amps when I switch back and forth, at least to my hearing, maybe my hearing is not good enough. I don't know, right? But I just don't hear enough of a difference to, say, well, this one is much more smoother. This one has more better bass, texture, extension to high frequency, none of that. It is very subtle difference, and any of those differences to me is very, negligible. There's something not worth me talking about. So I won't. And there is, to my experience, nothing to worry about. There's not much of a difference. So the NC500 here accepts balanced only. It doesn't have an RCA input. And so that can be a problem when it comes to some people. But I didn't, because I had a preamplifier like my Mod-Right LS100, or even the Junction or Youngson, however you want to call it, preamplifier that I have in for review. So I didn't have much of a problem. I also used Parasound Hint 6 as a preamplifier as well. So I didn't really have a problem in terms of, a balanced connection, not being compatible. But some of you may have a problem with that. Now, I do like the fact, now this is a small thing, but I do like the fact that you're able to dim the LED lights that come on the amplifier. so that it's not shining. So I noticed that this is very beneficial when you have your lights turned off at night and you want to listen to music quietly and be in the mood, right? You're setting yourself in the mood to listen to music and enjoy it, and you see the blue LED just blinding you. Well, this lets you dim it. Now, let's get into the sound, because I think that is where people are really interested. So, when I first hooked it up, I was blown away. Not in such a good way though, at this time. People are always saying, oh my god, he's always saying he's blown away, it's so salesy. Well, things actually blow me away. I'm actually impressed. But in this case, I was not that impressed. And the reason was because there was this glare in the upper mid-range region, and the high frequency seemed too forward, too bright for my liking. And the mid-range didn't sound all that right either, scattered, not really good imaging. And so I was immediately like, okay, I'm gonna let it run for a little bit. And turns out when I was searching on the net, a lot of people have been recommending to run this, make it run for 3 days or so. So I didn't turn it off, I played music, in low volume, didn't turn it off for 3 days, came back, and what I noticed was that, well, sound became more focused. Everything sounded a little bit better. So there is some truth to that. But when I came back after 3 days of testing and letting it run, the upper mid-range glare or forwardness was still there. Now keep that in mind. That's something that I personally don't prefer, but something that you may prefer. Now let me break it down into the different regions. So when it comes to the bass region, now the bass region is interesting because one of the specifications that they list is the damping factor, and it says ultra high damping factor. Now I don't know what that means. Usually a damping factor is a number. For example, Hego H120 has a damping factor of 2000, which is quite a lot. I don't know what ultra high damping factor means in this case because they have not revealed the number. So if you're interested, you can contact Nord Acoustics and ask them. But I can't give you a number. So I say that because the damping factor is directly related to or partially related to the control of the woofers in a speaker. So when it comes to the bass region, I found that the bass is very well controlled. It is punchy and dynamic, fast, but it is not going to be very textured. It's not going to plunge down into low frequencies. In comparison to, for example, something like the Hego H120 or the Hego H190 or even the Hego H90, the bottom end is not going to have as much of grunt. It's not going to have as much of authority. It's just not going to be that. It's just going to be fast, clean, and it's going to be dynamic. Now, when it comes to the mid-range can sound a little bit forward. With some recordings, for example, poor recordings or modern recordings, it may sound too sharp or bright for a lot of the people out there. In my testing, I found that the modern music and some poorly recorded music, in some cases, was unlistenable. Now, when it comes to very good recorded music, it does great separation, great imaging, and throws a decent amount of soundstage. So I found that to be very, very interesting. Now, when it comes to the focus, separation is very good within the soundstage given. Now I found that other units, for example Hego and First Watt and units like this has a little bit more of a holographic wet sound to it. In this case, you're gonna get a little bit of the opposite, a little bit more drier, a little bit more direct sound coming from these units when you hook them up to your speakers. Now I've tested it with multiple different speakers, not just one, including the ELAC Velas, Tecton Lowers, the CSS Audio that I have in for your review, Focals, Picards, many speakers. So, and that all kind of, ties in with my review of this unit, that the high frequency is a little bit on the brighter side, a little bit more on the cooler side of neutral. And that was the biggest thing for me because I am not really a, guy who likes bright. But some people may find this to be clean. Some people may find this to be extended into high frequency. Some people may even find it to be refined. But personally, I just didn't find it to be refined. I just didn't find it to be, detailed while not being bright. I found it to be a little bit bright to my ears. And when I connect it to something like the Picard S400, which is something to be a speaker that is a little bit laid back in presentation, good all-rounder speaker that you can listen on for days. When I hooked it up to the Nord Acoustics, my ears were a little bit fatigued after 20 minutes or so of listening. Now it's funny because it's not my first time hearing Hypex designed, amplifiers before. Hypex designed amplifiers, I've heard, NED M10, which is based off of the Hypex design. And I've heard other units that were Hypex, based. And I never found them to be bright or, I never found them to be too exaggerated in any way. And I found quite, a lot of them to be very exceptionally good. But in this case, it's just not my cup of tea, I guess. Now, this is very interesting to me because this unit is supposed to measure very, very well. And so I contacted some, of my friends out there that I trust in the industry that are very experienced, that has, designed Hypex based amplifiers before and know what they're doing. And one of them that I trust a lot has recently passed away, so I will greatly miss him. But when I was on the phone with him, he confirmed that, what I was hearing was what I was hearing, and that was his experience as well with the NC500. And a lot of the other people out there also confirmed the same thing. So that kind of makes me wonder, and that really comes to the conclusion of you really have to listen to it for yourself. Measurements can tell you quite a few things. I'm not a totally anti-measurement guy, but it is my belief that, you can't discern a sound quality by just based off measurements. In fact, a lot of the engineers like Nelson Pass and a lot of the engineers, start out with measurements, including Dan D'Agostino, and they don't finish with it. They finish with their ears. They finish with their listening experience. So I found that to be very interesting. But I realized that some people may really like this type of sound, a little bit more dry, a little bit more quick, fast, and extended in the high frequency, or a little bit on the brighter side of neutral, cooler sounding units. And this can also be a benefit to some systems that sound a little bit too dark. And so I see the value in a component like this. Now also, the fact that this is, for a monoblock, $1,200 USD or $1,300 USD, landed with shipping and imports and stuff like that, perhaps it will be just under $2,000 USD landed in the US. So I find that to be a pretty good value when it comes to a design if you are looking for a sound specific to the Nord Acoustics Hypex NC500. So that's pretty much it for this review. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.